Welcome to the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrian Campbell, where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. This week, I have Kristen Lux and Greg Grimes with me, co-owners of For the Love of Systems, and we will be talking about the importance of habits, the different conscious and unconscious systems in our lives, and how all of this contributes to our story. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Energetic Psyche, episode 11, The Importance of Habits. I'm here this week with Kristen Lux and Greg Grimes, co-owners of For the Love of Systems. And we're going to be talking about the importance of habits, the different conscious and unconscious systems in our lives, and how all of this contributes to our story. So I just want to share a little bit about Kristen and Greg with you. Kristen co-owns For the Love of Systems with Greg. The company is a management coaching and consulting firm focused on transforming small business, team, and client experiences. And I will say that the customers that I've talked to of theirs absolutely rave about you guys, just so you know. Just earlier today, somebody actually messaged me and said that they were talking to their boss about you guys and were so excited about the podcast tonight. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, right?
The affirmation are my love language, so.
There you go. Oh my gosh. Okay. So Kristen, after experiencing the operations challenges faced by scaling small businesses while she was working as an employee, she set out to provide much needed operations frameworks and support by launching For the Love of Systems in 2020. Leveraging the power of digital systems and processes and habit coaching, For the Love of Systems helps its clients streamline their team and client experiences so they can find ease in their day-to-day operations. Kristen's also a Habit Story certified coach and certified director of operations, and she has 20 years of operations experience working for and with small businesses. When she isn't nerding out over processes and habits, you can find her outdoors walking, hiking, biking, paddling, volunteering, going on road trips, doing yoga, and watching corgi videos. I love that. And then let's not forget Greg. Greg co-owns For the Love of Systems with his beautiful wife, Kristen. He joined the company in 2023 after a decade of operations consulting with small businesses. His work with teams across many different industries, along with a passion for personal change, made him a perfect partner to launch a new service line focused on habit formation and change. And we've had some really good conversation about that. So I'm excited for that today. And Greg is also Habit Story certified as a coach and a big picture thinker with 20 years of experience working for and with small businesses. And he spends his free time doing anything he can outdoors, practicing his bass guitar, taking deep dives into medical research, and volunteering. And I have to say, Greg, I did not know that you played bass guitar. And
I'm starting to. I bought one over the pandemic and it got dusty. So I picked it up this year as my resolution.
Nice. I played in high school. I was actually in a band. I thought I was really cool. I thought I was way cooler than we actually were probably. But yeah, that's cool. Right on. So yay. Okay. So welcome. So glad to have you guys here. You have so many years of amazing experience. And like I said, I've talked to clients and customers of yours about the amazing work that you do. And even in getting ready for this podcast, we were joking about how I'm kind of a little all over the place and loosey-goosey. And when I do stuff, I usually jump off the cliff and then figure it out as I go. Kristen is the complete opposite of me. So if you're looking for someone to get you organized and help you get your shit together, that's the team right there. Yeah. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about how you met and, how your life kind of directed you along the path to here?
Yeah, definitely. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we met. We're from St. Louis originally. We've been in Columbia since 2018. We met in St. Louis working in the restaurant industry. So we both worked in hospitality in the beginning of our career, and we found ourselves working at a brand new restaurant that was opening. And like what happens in the restaurant industry, you find yourself dating your coworker. And actually, we were talking to Adrian earlier. There were a few weddings spawned out of that restaurant. So a few married couples came out of there. And we've been on kind of an entrepreneurial and business journey off and on throughout our working career, I guess. But in the last year or so, Greg was doing a lot of consulting, and we kind of like, I guess, avoided working together for a really long time is what I'm trying to avoid saying, but is the truth. Because, they say married couples working together, like, how do you make it work? And it is hard. It is very hard to work together. We go through challenges all the time because when you're in a relationship with anyone, it is hard. But we realized last year, finally, after we had been sharing a client for a little bit, he had brought me into one of his clients' businesses to help do what I do. And we figured out how to work together really harmoniously in that process. And it was really cool. And we also, at the same time, thought we were going to launch another business. We participated in Missouri Startup Weekend last year.
Okay.
And almost launched a company. And I said, hey, 3 companies is too much. We're not going to run 3 companies at once. So we're going to go ahead and figure out a way to make this work. And so we ended up merging our businesses into one. It was right around the same time that I wanted to make some pivots inside of For the Love of Systems as well, which was really cool. So Greg's been with me, helping me. He has a very strategic mind. And so he's been able to really bring a lot of strategy and big picture thinking to some big changes that needed to be made inside the business. That they say you can't see the glass from inside the jar. Alicia Burke-Aguero is notorious for that statement in the brand world. And that's kind of where I was with the business. So it was really great to bring him in. And we've launched a whole new service line in last year. We've launched 2 new service lines. We've really overhauled the entire business, which is really cool. So,
well, and I think it's like, people say, when you work with your significant other, it can be tricky, but I think what it comes down to is it's either going to be really difficult or really amazing. I don't know that there's like an in-between, at least in the couples that I've seen. Yeah. And so much of it, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but a lot of it comes down to like assuming best intentions, which you should do with coworkers anyway, just saying, or people in general, and being clear, honest, having open communication, not just about like the work, but your feelings about things and whether something's bothering you or not. And, all that stuff that I think too often we try to keep separate from business, but we're whole people all the time. So you can't really do that. But yeah, so cool. I'm so glad that it's working out for you guys. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time together, and it gives us a lot of time. It gives us a lot of time to grow, honestly, which I'm really grateful for. We're all here to grow and change, in my opinion, I think. And why not accelerate the process if you can by just having more interactions?
I love your positive attitude. That's fantastic.
Hey, I'm a silver lining kind of gal most of the time. So
that's probably why we get along. I like it. Awesome. Okay. So, and we came together tonight to talk about habits. Like you were just saying, you're doing this habit story coaching, and you sent me a report, which was amazing, which I'm sure you'll get into at some point. But why don't we start? Well, you tell me where you want to start, because we've talked about a lot of things. This is your, how it lays out. I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we started our business working with systems. We started working with software, and everybody wants software to be this like magic bullet for their business. And really, let's talk about life too, because I know we're not talking to just business owners here. We're talking to normal people. So even normal people, we're looking for, what app can I have to help me change my life? What software can I download to fix all of my problems, right? And that's like the system side of things. And that's a really important piece. But the more that we have dived into systems in our work, the more that we have learned and found that process is what drives systems. And I've known this all along, but it's been identified over and over and over again so many times that in the last couple of years, we've really spent more and more time diving into process. And so by diving into the process that goes into systems, we then found ourselves backing up out of processes and going, well, wait, what's driving these processes, right? If processes are driving systems, what's driving processes? And you get to thinking about it, and you're like, the further away you move from the software, the systems, the more you get into the people side of things. And the people are going to drive anything that you do, no matter what it is. So personal life, business, wherever. How you show up is going to drive behavior, essentially. And go ahead.
Sorry. And I'll just say, like, in a lot of the leadership training and stuff that I did. So before I taught leadership, I taught electronics, and people would be like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of still troubleshoot. I just troubleshoot people instead of like equipment and machinery. But like, there is a lot when it comes to big business or even small business that you can take and put into your own personal life. Like a lot of the stuff I taught in leadership that was for like work was really effective for like everyday living too. And so I think that like that's exactly what you're talking about here, is that a lot of what you're sharing with us today, we can use in both ways. We just have to have, you know, that open mind of thinking about it from both perspectives.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So then in looking basically at process though, we're like, what is driving process? It's people, but what is it about the people? And so we came to this realization that it's their habits. Their habits are what is driving everything that they're doing and how they're showing up. It drives your behavior. It drives everything. So, or 43% of your day, I guess they say, but it drives a big portion of how we're showing up, right? And so as we continue to back out of this, we've been looking at it from a different lens. And right around the time that we were having this conversation and making all these pivots to our business, we were introduced to this assessment called Habit Story. And Habit Story is a psychometric assessment that essentially measures your productive and counterproductive habits to provide you with insights into how you're showing up.
It also measures your response pattern and emotional state too. So kind of how you navigate change in life, and then also like the intensity and stability of your emotions, as well as how much drain you're experiencing, like how much your current circumstances or even past circumstances that you're holding on to are really weighing you down.
Right. And like I said, I mentioned I looked at the example you guys sent me, and I seriously was like, man, I should have taken that before the podcast. That would have been super cool. I didn't even think about it.
You definitely do it sometimes.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Oh, for sure. Because, you know, I'm pretty familiar with a lot of different types of assessments. Myself, I give the Myers-Briggs, and they have lots of different ways that you can publish the report and use the results. I've also done DISC and Insights and Human Design and Enneagram.
What really attracted us to Habit Story is that just about everything it's measuring is manageable by you. So like,
so important.
I'm an INFJ, like that's really not going to change, and so I have to kind of figure that out for myself. But like, if my strain score in Habit Story is too high, like I have control over how hard I'm pushing myself, and whether or not I'm pushing myself to my own detriment.
Well, and that's what I really liked, is like one of the assessments that I give that's not personality based is the Energy Leadership Index, and it's attitude based, right? Yep. So you can change that. And I noticed that when I looked at the report you guys sent me, it's stuff that you have control over and you can change, which is great because it's information that empowers you and through raising your own self-awareness. Yeah. So I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, that really, the entire existence of For the Love of Systems is about empowering people. That is what we have always been about. And that's why I keep backing away from systems as I learn more and discover more from doing the work, because we're always looking for what is the way that we can best empower our clients, truly. Like, how can we truly bring change into their business in a way where we're not offering them a magic bullet solution to a problem, when a magic bullet isn't going to fix anything. It never does. You always have to change from within. And it's the hard work that we all have to do in life, is to make these changes from within. But it's just the reality of our existence that if we want to grow as people and lead better lives or have better businesses or whatever, we have to be willing to take that look at ourselves and pull that data from ourselves. That's the beauty of this assessment, and any assessment, is that you're getting data from your actual self in that situation. It's not someone else telling you, a counselor, a partner, a friend, a whoever, saying, well, this is what I see about you. It's an actually proven scientific process of gathering information about your own self and then analyzing that and providing you with those insights. So we're really excited to have that in our offer suite and to be able to really be able to help clients and even just individuals at this point. I mean, this is a service that we're able to offer to anyone who's looking to make changes to their habits and to their behaviors. And so anybody who's looking to make those changes and pull that data out and get some coaching around how to make those changes and how to kind of dig into that, and also how to maybe build systems around that too, though. How do you build systems? There's a metric that it looks at that's an openness score, and it's looking at how much you like structure or don't like structure. And so, like, if you have a low, you're probably a high openness, Adrian, and I'm a low openness. which means I love structure and you don't, right?
Well, you know what's funny is that like oh my gosh, I was talking to my roommate. I'm like, if you looked at my journal and just counted the amount of times that I was like, oh, I need to create more structure in my life. I need to get on a schedule. And then I like start like building it all out. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be amazing. And I have a really analytical past. I worked in, nuclear, semiconductor, geophysics. I've worked with engineers for years and years, so I know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm an ENFP and like very clear N. I am not detailed. I can do it, but it hurts really bad. So anyway, what I realized, yeah, I don't like the structure, but there's something about the act of creating the structure that calms me down and makes me feel like I have more control, even if I don't actually do anything. Like it's the act of like, you could, if you really wanted to, like, just so you know, you have the power, like it's going to be fine. But yeah, structure.
Yeah. So just knowing that like using that too, like if we're working with a team or even looking at a couple together, gosh, doing habit story together, like not only doing the assessment, but then going through the certification together and then like talking about all this stuff. Oh my gosh, like the revelations you have around how to better show up in your relationship are insane, right?
Yeah.
But through working with a habit story coach like us on that process and looking at, we get this special team report when you work with us versus if you just like take it on the website, and we can look at your habits next to each other and we can talk about how, if the husband has low openness and the wife has high, how those two things are going to show up in that relationship and how you might adjust your plans in your household as far as who's doing what based upon that information to know that the husband is going to like the structure, the wife isn't. He's going to be building the system. She's probably going to be resistant to him potentially. Right. And so like working with that information to build a better life or build a better business, because when you know this about yourself, then you can adjust accordingly.
It's all about awareness. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, it's the like assuming best intentions, right? So like when I would teach the Myers-Briggs in the workplace and even with individual clients, it's so incredible. They assume that the other person, like if let's say the husband likes the structure and the wife doesn't, the husband is like, she's always just trying to drive me crazy. And she's like, he's just constantly trying to tell me what to do. Right. But like, it's things like this that you can take this assessment and be like, oh my God, you're not a big jerk. Like this makes you feel like happy and content and safe. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, so you mentioned that you can take this online through the website or with a coach. And so if anyone's considering the website, I'm just going to tell you, don't do that. Go through a coach. And I'm saying this with all of my experience doing assessments. Whatever you see written on the page is great, but what that coach is going to tell you is going to be so much more in depth and personal. Like it really matters.
Well, that's why like all of our habits, whether they're productive or counterproductive, like that's at a certain point in time, and even our most counterproductive habits serve some benefit to us at some place. Like they either like helped us avoid pain, minimize pain, like pursue pleasure, or like preserve it in some way, shape, or form. And when you combine trauma and all sorts of layers like that on top of it, like what we do to survive is magical and absolutely amazing.
Right.
We're not really good at like cycling through those behaviors very well, or making a regular practice of evaluating whether or not this belief, like you say, assume best intentions. Well, what if I assume that everyone's out to get me? Well,
that colors your world very different.
Visual thought that I have
yeah.
that will then shape how I show up for different interactions, how I respond to adverse situations, positive situations, all of that. And so like it really is so critical. I mean, we found this with business owners that we work with and consult with, that like sometimes you can be doing everything right and there's still struggles. And so where else can you go but inward to see like how I'm showing up and how that's impacting the outcomes that I'm seeing in my life and business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, like I said, I loved the amount of self-awareness that report provided, because it really does empower people. Again, I think that's another reason we get along. We have such different businesses, but I think there's those fundamental things. It's like, and in conversations that you and I have had, Kristen, it's about like, I don't want people to have to hire me over and over and over and over. Like, I want them to hire me to gain the skills that they need to care for themselves the best that they can. And then I want to like high five them and be like, now go forth and be amazing.
Yeah.
That's our business model too. And I know like every business coach in the world is like recurring revenue. And like, that's great, but I don't want people to become dependent on us. That's not what we're here for. You're here to find that from within you. And we're just giving you tools to help you do that. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing to empower people.
Yes, right. And like, I don't know, it all gives me all the tingles when I see them realize how amazing they really are and like go do stuff. Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. So do you want to tell us a little bit about like the way that you work with people?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the habit side of our business, our main package that we offer for that is a habits overhaul coaching program. And it's a 3-month coaching program where we start out with the habit story assessment. And we do 2 debrief sessions after the assessment results. So I think a lot of people typically do one with just assessments in general, but we find that we like to really dive deep into especially the response pattern and the emotional state side of the assessment, which is ironically not the habits. It's what colors the habits, but that's the stuff that really almost applies the most to the systems work. That's where the openness score comes in. That's where people's decision speed comes in.
Communication, clarity. Yeah,
some really big stuff comes out of that section. So we spent almost an entire session working on that.
Yeah. So, I love that you do 2 debriefs. I've never thought of that, but like it also, I'm sure, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure it gives them time to process like the results. And because they're all smart and amazing, they're going to come back and be like, you know what else I realized, blah, blah, blah. And it just gives you more to work with. Right. Oh, so smart.
It's a lot to throw at someone. Even like we thought we were going to do it in an hour originally, and then we had to extend it to 90 minutes. And then we had to add another 45-minute meeting on after that, because like we're crazy. Like we can go deep into this stuff for like hours, but like we're at the tail end. We're on the extreme. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody can do that. And unless you're like absolutely perfect, you may be encountering some challenging emotions through this debrief, and like it's only appropriate to sit with those for a bit. And so we get everybody to a point where they're feeling comfortable with the material, they understand what it's showing them, and then they can go sit with that for a bit, and then we come back and close up the next week. But
That's
really,
awesome.
like we're emphasizing change. We're trying to encourage people to change, and there's nothing worse than someone just like overpowering you with information and then just like leaving you destroyed to like move on. Like, why aren't you better now? You know, like I just told you everything that's wrong with you. Why aren't you better?
Right. All the awareness. Yeah. Yep. No, I hear it.
We really like, we're not change experts, but we've taken a deep look at change and what it takes to change. And we've done a lot of research on the nervous system. And so we're thinking about that when we're designing our services. It's not apparent maybe in how we're showing up in our marketing materials, but that's what's happening behind the scenes when we're designing services is like, how do we do this in a way that is actually going to like soothe someone's nervous system versus put them on high alert? Right?
The change curve. You like who was it? Kubler-Ross. I forget.
Yeah,
her first name.
Elizabeth.
She did all the research on grief. And if you look at the grief curve and the stages of grief, and then you look up a change curve and what you go through when you're changing, it's the exact same thing. And so when you think about personal change or change in general, like who's ready to grieve? Like nobody, you know? But somehow we're supposed to be excited about change.
Right. Well, and that's where people fall into like pitfalls, right? Is because they're like, oh, it's just a change. It's no big deal, blah, blah, blah. And then culture supports that, you know, like, yeah, you just move through it. No big deal. And then if they start feeling wonky or maybe because like you were mentioning, those things in the report that are behind the habits are what feed it, right? And some of it's conscious and some of it's unconscious. Some of it's somatic and resides in the body, the central nervous system and all of that. And we don't realize like how impactful these changes really can be, you know? So I love that you guys take all that into consideration.
Thanks. So I think we stopped talking about at the debrief. So after we do the debrief, we also create a plan with them at that point in time too, of where they want to change. So each plan is customized to the individual based on their assessment. And we're not here telling people how to change. We're having a conversation with them and asking questions so that they can figure out what changes they want to make. And then we're going to help them create a plan in a format or structure that's going to work for them and how their brain works for changing. And then we're going to be there to hold them accountable over those 3 months while they're trying to make those changes. So we're going to do weekly check-ins with them and say, hey, how's it going? Let us know where you're at on these things. And then we're also going to have a monthly call with them where we're actually going to do some additional coaching. We're going to, if we're building a system for them to track their changes if they want to, we're going to check in on that and see how that's going. And then we're just going to do that over the 3-month period of time. And then at the end, we're going to do another assessment with them. And that's going to allow us to check in and see, did we actually move the needle on any of these things that we wanted to move the needle on?
So important.
Yeah, we get this nice big full picture look at where you were and now where you are and go from there. So we do also offer the assessment by itself too. If someone doesn't want to do the whole coaching plan, we do also offer the assessment and the debrief sessions as their own individual. And then we also do the assessment and debrief with teams. So it's really fun to bring into a team environment. So it could be, again, it could be like a husband and wife, but it could be in most of our case, we're working with business owners and we're helping them evaluate their team and how the team is showing up. It's not so much that the business owner is going to walk around and go, I see you with this habit and this other habit and like use it against the team, right? Like we're not here to try to like.
What if you're a small business owner and your first hire is absolutely amazing and the only question on your mind is how do I find another one of this person?
So you guys, I mean, that's literally what businesses use these assessments for. Like, I'm not going to name any names of any companies I've worked for, but I've worked in companies that use Myers-Briggs to be like, oh, we have enough extroverts on this team. Go grab me an introvert. Let's add them. And they just label without realizing like, yeah, maybe that's their like personality preference type, but that's not like all of who they are. Or I had another company that did insights, which gives the color, right? Like red, blue, yellow, green. And they had people's lanyards changed to the color of their assessment. And then like people that had the red style, which is more aggressive, like took advantage of that and was like, it's my type. Right. And then other people, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And like, that's the kind of the cool thing about this is that you honestly couldn't really use it that easily to label people.
Well,
like,
no,
even if you wanted to.
You're more likely to be like, hey, I'm an owner of a business and I have super high openness because I'm entrepreneurial and visionary, but I'm revolutionizing the accounting industry. Like, what kind of staff or what kind of team am I going to want to assemble around me? Probably people with really low openness that love structure because you're in a compliance driven, very like exact industry. And so it's important to know that with that high openness, you're probably not going to be providing the structure that people are looking for, and they could grow frustrated with you. And you may be wondering why everybody's mad at you, but it's like, you're not providing any structure to a whole team of people that thrive on structure, or your emotional intensity is great. It does so many productive things for the business, but your stability is so low that anytime something goes remotely wrong, like it throws everyone into a panic, you know? And
I'm feeling very
I'm not
called out and seen all at the same time. I'm
speaking from personal.
This is not Adrian's results.
I didn't take the report.
I mean, that's the thing is this stuff is this, we can laugh about it because it's so ubiquitous and so common, and it's not so easily changed or fixed, but it's simple in our understanding of what needs to be done. And from there, it's about building in the accountability outside of ourselves and the commitment within ourselves to see those changes through. And you'll know how hard that's going to be for you based upon like whether you have high persistence or not, you know? And so you can really see like where you're going to struggle and where you need to support yourself with systems, processes, not just in the business sense, but like in our personal lives.
So I want to key into something you just said that I think is really important. So we've been talking about like, we started talking about like systems, which are fed by processes, which are fed by habits, right? But what you just said was kind of backwards, not in a, it's backwards, but opposite way I'll say, is that systems and procedures to support you enacting the habits the way you want to, right? And performing the way you want to. I think is so important because that's like whenever I work with people and work with different clients, I'm like, I'm not trying to change you. We don't need to make you be like everybody else, this perfect, you know, square box, horrible, right? I want to like make you the best version of you, which is how do we support that? Who do you want to show up as and how do we support that? And so I think what you just said is exactly that. What systems do we put in place to support the version of you that you want to show up as, whether it's a team, a business, an individual?
We all need to show up as ourselves and like completely and wholly as ourselves. We just have some rough edges in doing that. And the idea is to use these systems and processes when we're working together to smooth that out so that we all can live and work friction free.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So I loved hearing your process. And like I said at the beginning, thinking about how this plays out across not just organizations, but with people, right? So we talked earlier before the podcast on how you employ this work. So small businesses up to 12 people, we would do as like one component, right? One team. And then larger organizations, we'd break into teams if they were, already. And I would even say, in my experience working in leadership in large organizations, we would often do assessments on teams that were put together for like special projects that would last 6 months or more, because it would just help that team be so much more efficient. And I can see this kind of work 100% showing up for a company like that, right? Like if you're putting a project together, talking about habits and how, I mean, all the stuff, amazing. So, excuse me, but yeah, so I really like that. And then couples, right? Family systems. Have you thought about that?
Right now, like that's, I mean, we took the assessment back in November and we got certified a couple months ago, but we've been diving into just our own, like how do we change ourselves on a deep level with this work? And I'm not going to lie, it's hard. Like it's hard work to change. It really is, especially when it's so ingrained.
You're the structure person and I'm Mr. Creative, and we're trying to like work in the same business together and live in the same house. And like, man, you have to dig deep in the toolbox to like find what you need to address some situations. But like, it's only through exploring those parts of ourselves and our relationships that we're ever going to like get to where we want to be. So many times we just like get to a place where we're stuck and then try to find a way around or change the goal altogether. And like, I don't know. I just feel like we do ourselves a disservice by not really like figuring out how to make us work rather than just trying to diminish ourselves or like be like over the top in some way.
Well, and so I'm going to get a little spiritual with us here, but like, I think that's one of the things that makes the world so beautiful is how unique we all are. And so when we do, you know, like what you're talking about, where we try to cut off those corners that don't fit, right? Or ignore the parts of us that are hard to understand. We are doing a huge disservice, not only to ourselves, but to the world, who really deserves like the fullest, most beautiful part of us, right? Or version of us. And I'll say, like, I hear you when it comes to nothing is more humbling than raising your self-awareness to an extreme amount. and you start to see all these things about yourself that you're just like, oh yeah, look at me go do that. Oh, there I am. Or wow, yep, I do get irritable and cranky when this happens. Or, oh, look, I'm kind of a jerk right now. Or blah, 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 right? Et cetera, et cetera.
Without judgment though, right? Like I think that's a really important part too, is like if you're going to have awareness about these things, do not be a jerk to yourself about them. Like, tease,
Yeah.
tease. Like, a lot of us have that inbuilt into us to be jerks to ourselves. We really do. And you won't be jerks to your kids, your partner, maybe your partner, I don't know, depending. But like, you're not going to be a jerk to all these other people. So don't be a jerk to yourself when you're going through this work, when you're trying to change. Be compassionate with yourself and understand that you're doing the best that you can do. And even noticing yourself doing the thing that you don't want to do is an improvement over what you did before, which was just did it on autopilot. And so,
which is what I always say is be curious, not judgmental.
Yes.
Right. So when you see it, it's asking questions. And so like, as you work through it, like one of the things that's helped me is that when I notice these things about myself, I go, wonder why I did that. When have I seen this before? Where else does this show up for me? And then one of the ones that I use as like an origin question with clients and myself is, when's the first time I remember doing that? And that usually helps unpack a lot of, like, especially the ones that are real deep, the unconscious stuff, where we're like, I don't know, it's just, God, I've been doing this for like 30 years or since I was a kid. You know, it's when was the first time I remember doing that? And so when I run out of tools or I'm digging super deep in that box, sometimes I take a minute and just start asking myself questions, you know, to find out a little bit more about what it is. It's kind of like, I imagine the scientist in the rainforest that finds a new butterfly. You know, the minute you pin it down and say, this is what it is, it's done.
Yeah.
And it never has an opportunity to show you anything else. Whereas if we can get curious and like watch it and see what it does and where it goes and how it reacts here and how it reacts to that, then it can give us more and more information about itself.
Yeah.
So true.
Everything served a purpose at some point in time. And like, just because we find ourselves like using a spoon to cut a steak, like we shouldn't shame ourselves over that, you know, just like laugh about how ridiculous it is. Like this human condition can be so overly serious and so much heavier than it needs to be. And like, if we can just laugh at our humanness, it's so much easier to be human.
You're so absolutely right. It's the sense of humor, taking it with a grain of salt. I mean, you guys have owned dogs. Do you currently own a dog?
No,
not at the moment.
Last year,
yeah, I remember. I'm sorry. I think owning dogs is one of the things that really like got me there 100% because they do stuff like I'm covered in dog hair 90% of the time. I have a golden retriever and a lab and a cat. And I remember when I first got dogs, I would literally like call my partner from outside and be like, lock them up. I'm coming in. And I'd run into my fancy clothes, and go change, and then come out in like trash clothes and be like, okay, now you can touch me.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
You want to pick them up and like,
yeah, like it's muddy outside right now. And my kitchen floor has muddy dog prints on it because it's right next to the back. And it's like, what are you gonna do? You know, like, am I gonna get really mad and like be so angry and have all these negative emotions? Like, dude, it's just dirt. It's gonna be fine. You know,
you learn to put a lint roller everywhere that you're ever going to be with clothes on when you own a dog.
Right.
Like lint roller in the car, lint roller in the purse, travel lint roller in the suitcase thing, like everywhere.
We can all just use more lint rollers in our life in various ways to take the analogy.
Metaphorically speaking.
Any further.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and I think it is like we get so hung up and wrapped around the axle on having to be a certain way or being perfect or things not being good enough. And we forget to laugh and we forget that it doesn't have to be that serious. Like, you know, like the TPS report in Office Space, like it's totally cool. Like, you know, it's like Peter gets hypnotized. You guys remember that movie, right? The things I bring into these shows, I know, I'm sorry, but I'm not. And he does though, he gets hypnotized and he's just like, what the hell are we doing here? This is the most ridiculous thing ever. And it's such a beautiful metaphor, I think, for like so many of our lives at different moments. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I've digressed very far. So bringing it back, stories and habits and processes. So working with companies, organizations, you have your assessment. Now, what about outside of that, besides the habit story stuff? Like, what else do you guys offer?
So we also offer, our main specialty is on team and client experience design. So we're working with systems and processes related to the team and client experience. So we're breaking down, in essence, the client experience, the client journey of how a client moves through someone's business and the entire process along the way, from the moment they land on that website and press the button to reach out, all the way to the offboarding process. And you would think that that wouldn't be something all that complicated to sort through, but when it's the business owner inside their business and they've been doing it, whatever way in their head, they've been doing it habitually, right? Like typically who we're working with is a team that has either grown a little bit already, like a business owner has already hired some team members, but maybe they didn't do it super strategically and they brought in key hires because it was somebody they knew who needed a job and like it fit what they needed and things like that, or they're about to hire and they're looking to bring that structure in so that they can bring the team into some structure and some, standard operating procedures and stuff like that. And so we're really just helping them to bring structure to what they've already been doing. But then also once we have figured out kind of what they're already doing, we're looking for ways to improve that as well. So we're looking at, are you managing this in software already? If not, okay, cool. What software could we use to manage these processes to first make for a better experience for the client, but also to make for a better experience for the team? Because, we've worked with, I'll explain my own situation of working in small business, right? Where you have all these things that you're responsible for and like, they give you like a notepad and a computer and like, you just are supposed to figure it out, like what to do with all this stuff. And back when I was working as an employee, it's when software was starting, like we had an Asana subscription back then. Right. No one showed me how to use it. No one showed me what to do with it. And I honestly just didn't use it because I didn't have time to figure it out at the time, which is the crazy thing, right? Because now
it takes time to get organized.
Right? So I defaulted to a notepad for my work because literally I just had so many things on my plate that's all I could do to keep myself organized. And I did great. And I like thrived in it because that's just how I am. I had worked in restaurants long enough that a notepad was actually a pretty familiar writing space for me. And
I'm looking at my notepad like right over here.
You just put your table numbers and all those things there and like organize it a certain way. But it was through that work, like when I left that job and was going out to start my business, I had learned a ton about systems and I had learned about Asana at that point and seen, oh, okay, this is how I should be using Asana or should have been using it this whole time. And I left that role with all this documentation in place and all this stuff in place because I wanted to leave it better than how I found it. So, but I found it not in a good state, right? I found it with a database that was empty. It had like no customer records in it. And there were like 600 customers that I was responsible for managing and there were no records for them, right? And so I spent my whole working time there building the database and organizing the database, doing all these things and getting all this stuff put together. And I just saw that this level of understanding was missing in the small business space, that lots of big businesses had it. And the reason we had Asana is because someone told the owner that we needed it, but he never told anyone how to use it, right? Here's a subscription. I'm going to pay
for it.
Right, but we're not going to show you how to use it. Yeah. And so
that's a thing that we've come across too, is just someone was told to use a software and it doesn't work for them. And really what we found is you've got to look at software as like a hire. You're asking it to take responsibility for different processes, especially when you're automating workflows. It has particular skill sets that it needs, like capabilities that you're looking for in it. And so in the same way that you would look to hire a person by stating their responsibilities and the specific skill sets they need to bring to those responsibilities, we help people map out what their software needs to bring to the table, both capabilities and like, as well as, everything beyond that.
We look at it from the process level, and then once you've mapped out the process, you actually can see really clearly what you need the software to do for you. It's honestly, it's the Marie Kondo method. Okay, Marie Kondo talks about taking your clothes out and lay it all out on the bed. We're going to lay that whole process out on the bed, because how else are we going to know all of the things that are going on? And how are we going to know that you need a welcome guide in your business if we don't know all the stuff that you need to share at the beginning of the engagement for us to see. I mean, most people do need a welcome guide for what it's worth. When you can get there, right? Like it's not a day one thing, but when you're up leveling your business, it's something that people, when they bring someone like us in, do want is a welcome guide, because you have all this information you want to share at the beginning of the engagement, and you want to tell them who you are and get familiar with you and all this stuff. But until you can lay all that out, you really don't know what it is that you need to share with your clients, because you're doing it habitually in your head. And so we help them get it all out there, so that then once it's all out, you can figure out what software you need to manage it. Maybe you don't even need software for certain aspects of it. Maybe part of it's a manual process, but you need to document what that manual process is. A lot of times it's a combination of those things.
Micro software.
Yes, like there's even like software is changing a lot right now. I'm sure everyone has seen how like the startup world is seeing some divestment and things like that. And so we have seen a change in software, at least. I mean, I've always been a little on the fence about software, to be honest, because I feel like they always prioritize getting features out, more features, software as a service, right? The model where you subscribe to a subscription of software, like feature. But then they don't ever necessarily, not everybody, but a lot of them don't make sure that the features work together well, or they release features that are buggy. And it's just like, it's again, that like, it's not a magic bullet.
Small business owners rely on this stuff too for their bread and butter. I mean, like almost half of the United States is employed by small businesses, and they have these tools that are at like 75 to 85% sometimes. And it's like,
you are preaching to the choir.
Right?
This is our economy, and so we're looking at what tools are we providing our populace to do the productive work that they need to do, and are we satisfied with that? Are they paying too much for these tools that are maybe or maybe not helping them? Like these are all really big decisions that most business owners maybe lose sleep over, but don't have time to prioritize.
Especially small business owners. Like I'm a one-woman show right now, right? I've been thinking about hiring an assistant, which terrifies me because of all the stuff you guys are talking about.
But you know what to do.
I know I'm probably the perfect client for you. Because everything's in like idea space. But there's softwares that I use that I feel like as soon as I learn it, they change it or add a feature. There's one right now that is getting ready to transition to the new way of whatever. And they're giving you the option of, do you want to use the new or the old? And every once in a while, it'll automatically flip me to the new one. And I'm like, ugh. And I like, I'll start trying to use it. And then I'm like, this is stupid. And I'm like, turn it back.
You're in grief. You're in a change process. They threw you into it without your knowledge even. That's the
time to go learn how, and it's my email system. It's Microsoft Outlook is changing. And it's like, what was so wrong with it? And it's moments like that I also feel very old. And I'm like, it worked fine enough. I don't know why we need all this fancy things going on. Like, send the message, give it back. Like,
I feel like a healthy balance of feature releases is fine, but some software companies just get carried away with it. And it's maddening for small businesses to keep up with all of this stuff. And so that's really one of the reasons why we have gotten so process focused, is because the process is really what matters. And frankly, you're going to pick up and move to different software when you get mad enough or a new one comes out.
When your business grows, you have to pivot your business model, your service or product offerings. Like those changes are going to come down the line.
So we try to help people look at their business almost as like the processes are modular, right? Where they can be picked up and moved somewhere else. Like when you're upset with the software, maybe you're going to build something yourself. I mean, sometimes there's some of these no-code platforms that are out there. Even like I'm sure you've heard of Zapier that you can use for automation. That's a no-code platform where you're not typing any code in. There's code running behind the scenes. And all you have to do is understand the workflow of, if this thing happens, then do this other stuff, right? Like that's automation. If this, then that, and you're just telling it what to do when this thing happens. So I
have to tell you, like, just as you're talking about this, I'm like slightly terrified. like there's just a part of me that's like, I might stick with my pen and paper forever. But no, because like you taught us the class, was it Trello or Asana? Trello. Yeah. So you taught us the class on Trello when we were both at the hatchery together. And I started using it, and I think I was using Asana with an organization that I was consulting for. And then I loved your class. So I started using Trello in my own business, and it worked really, really well. But for some reason, and I'll tell you, I've gone to those boards and I always come back to the paper, and I don't know why, but I just do. And I think like a lot of what we talked about today, like needs to get cleared up before, and then I need to commit. Right. And I think that's part of like the habit story stuff that you were talking about is until like, oh my gosh, I'm totally talking myself into being your client. It's okay. It's good. It's good. Best sales call ever. Yeah. But like, until I really understand like the habits and how I work and the things that are important for me and what will best support me, you know, I can try all the different softwares in the world, but it's not really going to effectively support me. Oh, wow.
We're like babies who won't potty train. Like we just kind of stick with our diaper until it's too big of a mess.
Oh my God. You know? Right? So let me ask you guys, because seriously, the idea of working with you is extremely intimidating to me. And
why is that?
So I'm getting there because I know how much stuff is a mess in my business. I'm aware. Like, I think about like I have a welcome package. Is it where I want it to be? No. Would I want it to be better? Sure. I have client, documentation and intake forms and agreements and all that kind of stuff. Is it organized as beautifully as it possibly could be? No. Like, like there's lots of stuff like that. Like, lots of things. It works for me, but as I do start to scale and with wanting to bring on an assistant, it's kind of like when you clean your house before the maid gets there or the housekeeper, right? And I remember somebody being like, what do you mean you're cleaning your house before they get there? And I'm like, they're not going to handle my clutter. Like they clean the house, but I got to get all my stuff organized and out of the way. It reminds me of that. And so I'm just curious, do you guys have like a get ready for the love of systems checklist or something like that?
We have questionnaires, but like also like we were talking about earlier, like what we do serves us, or we wouldn't do it. And so don't like beat yourself up over whatever, even if you have everything perfectly organized in a cloud storage system. Like it doesn't matter. Like you're doing what works for you now, and what you're thinking about, or really what I would hope you're thinking about in working with us is, where do I want to get to, and what do I need to do as far as changes are concerned in myself and my business to get me there? Because generally what gets us to where we are isn't going to get us to where we want to go. And so with that, there's always going to be something. Like our business, we're always 3 months, 6 months down the line looking back and like, what the hell did we do building it out that way? But it worked at that time, and we're kicking ourselves down the road, but we have to remember that it worked at that time. And then we're just always going to have that realization about things in the past, because hopefully we're always growing and changing. And this is just something that's a part of it. There's always going to be muddy footprints from the dogs, if you want if you want business to be a part of your life, if you want relationships to be a part of your life, there's just going to be some messiness that's always going to have to be managed. There's no solution to it. It's just a management thing.
And let me be clear that I'm not intimidated because I think you're going to judge me. That's not what I'm saying at all. Not at all. No, I've known you long enough. It wouldn't bother me even if you did. But I'm not concerned about that. It's more the amount of work and untangling. And, it's like opening a drawer full of necklaces that's gotten all right, and taking the time to like pull each one apart and like sort through it. Excuse me. So it's more the amount of work that I know would come from it, even though, like I said earlier, like you got to do that upfront work. It's the go slow to go fast type of deal, right?
It's kind of, I think, a question of how smooth do you want it to be for you to bring this person into your business? That's what it really comes down to, I think. And certainly I've been in situations where I've been brought into businesses that have no structure, and I thrived in it. I mean, that's how this business came to be, right? So it's not to say that you can't find someone out there who like, they don't care what state you're in and they're going to bring a bunch of structure and they're going to fix it, right? That's possible. But you are going to set yourself up for success by doing that work in advance before you bring that person in, if you can. And it's not like you have to make your business perfect. First of all, there is no perfect in business, because the minute you get your stuff where you think you want it, something changes inside of your business. Like something changes out in the environment that makes you have to change it. And so you're always going to have to be changing. That's something we talk about all the time with clients, is like your systems and your processes are always going to be changing. That's why we do that process work, so that you understand that it's the process that matters. It's not about what software or system you've built to manage it. Right. And so being flexible and adaptable, and knowing though that you're going to get yourself to some point where you're going to be like, okay, I've got at least the stuff documented that I want this person to manage. You don't need to document anything else. If you know what you want that person to manage, or you can, I mean, we have some stuff we can work through with you on, figuring out what you're going to delegate to that person. But that's all you really need to focus on documenting out of the gate, right? You don't have to get into every single thing. If they're not taking over bookkeeping, why would you get into bookkeeping right now?
Right.
You have to take it in bite-sized pieces, basically.
And know that, you may not have the capacity to do all that work now, to make all those changes now. But every change you do make, every little change, I mean, James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits, even a 1% change can ripple out. And so even if you start making little changes, what those will do is add up to additional capacity that you will then gain to start making bigger changes. And it really snowballs that way, to where in very short order, when you start stacking small changes, you find that you will have the capacity that you didn't think you had before to make these larger changes that will really be impactful. So any change toward the productive, and not just in the economically productive sense, but productive for you as a person and your well-being, any change toward the productive is an addition to your capacity, which will enable future change for you.
And I think that's really important. So thanks for talking me off the edge. So because it does come down to the smaller steps, right? See, and this is also what I think is really funny. So I'm a coach. I've been a coach for 10 years now, right? I think I'm pretty good at it. Thank you. But as a business owner, I still get all up in my shit, right? And I'm like, as you guys are talking, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. And I'm like, oh God, that's a lot of work. So even though I know, I'm like, baby steps, how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That book, Atomic Habits, I love it. There's a line in there somewhere where he talks about every thought even that you put towards where you want to go is a vote for the person you want to become. And that was one of the things, I got goosebumps. I remember reading it and just being like, oh my God, right? That's such a good way to put it. But you're absolutely right. Baby steps. And I think, at least for me, like I said, big N in the Myers-Briggs. I also have Jupiter in my chart. So for me, everything is ginormous. It's really hard to remember those baby steps. So,
well, and let me conclude that by saying also that on the system side of the business, the process side, we start everyone with an audit. So we're not asking you to bring.
That's scary too.
I know, but
it's not like an audit.
Yeah, it's not IRS audit. We probably need a different word for it. If anybody has a better word for an audit, please help. But seriously, assessment, I don't know what the word is, but
it's you're getting to know you.
Yeah, but we extract that from you in a way. Everything we do is arm in arm. We're not waving wands and fixing things, right? You're along for the journey with us. Even the work that we do to actually make the changes in your business is coaching driven. It's not us coming in and doing all the typing and doing all the stuff. You're driving the mouse. We're just guiding you along what to do so that you can build that muscle memory and be empowered to run this stuff moving forward, where it's not us here, we did all this stuff, here it is, like a hot friggin' potato in your lap, right? No, it's because it's that nervous system stuff. It's meet every week for 3 months and work on your systems together. And by the time we're done, holy crap, your stuff is where you wanted it. And you feel good about it and you're not overwhelmed by it and your nervous system is calm and it's oh, okay, we made it through the change curve together versus if we came in, there's a lot of people that do the work that we do and they just package it all up and hand it to you and you're ready to go. But then I've heard time and time and time again that I don't know how to use my software. I don't know where this is. I don't know where that is. I don't know what to do with my business.
Because that's not the self-empowering business model you have. And I mean, and that's the thing is like, I've known you long enough and we've had enough conversations that like, I absolutely trust you in all of those spaces, like 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's for you, even though I love how structured you are and how streamlined your communication is when you talk about systems and processes, because it's so different than me. Like, I'm always like, I am so grateful people like you exist to help people like me get my shit together. Like, seriously, so grateful. And even through all of that, like, I still am very aware and very clear how much you care about everyone that you work with and you want like the best outcome for them. So yeah, no, I absolutely love that. It's fantastic. So we're about done, by the way. I know, time flies when you're having fun. So if there was one thing that you would want everyone to know, what would it be?
You're up.
Oh man. I don't know. There's that saying, we are the stories we tell ourselves. And we talked about that earlier. And I think that it's important that we create the stories that we're telling ourselves from like places of inspiration, like our upper brain, rather than places of emotion, like our limbic brain and lower centers. That will really make a huge difference. And that's a lot to unpack, I know, but that will really make a huge difference in all of our experience in relationships.
The best example I can give you of that, how I've seen this show up in the work that we do, is when somebody says, I'm not tech savvy, sorry, I can't do that. Right. You just put a wall up, right? You said, I'm not tech savvy, and now you've got your fingers in your ears and you're not listening. But if you say, I'm open to learning technology, oh my gosh, how different are you going to listen to that than if you didn't put that wall up, right? So absolutely. That's an example of a story that you're telling yourself that is getting in the way of your own success. It's okay to not be good at technology, but don't label yourself not tech savvy. Just say, I'm still learning with technology. Guess what? We're all learning with technology because it changes every dang day. So even us who are tech savvy, we're learning every day too. So don't label yourself and put yourself in that box, because that box is going to hold you back from making the changes that you want to make in your life or business.
Beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. Well, thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate you being on the podcast tonight. And I really had a lot of fun on this episode. Probably more fun than I've had in a long time, I'm just going to say.
We had a great time too. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So to everybody watching, bye. Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us on the Energetic Psyche, a podcast that live streams every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you'll be back for more. Have a great week.